On August 2nd, 2010, Riley, a 3-year-old little girl, told her day camp teacher she didn't feel very well. Here is her grandmother, Rose Ellen, to tell you what happened next.
My daughter Kristen went directly to school to pick up Riley. On the way to the pediatrician's office, Kristen asked, "What's wrong? What hurts?" The answer was strange. Riley said, "My eyes hurt, Mommy." Sadly, the doctor missed the diagnosis of Stevens-Johnson syndrome because initially the symptoms are very vague. The next morning, Kristen called me frantic. Riley had a fever of 104.5, was screaming when she urinated, and had blisters in her mouth. I told Kristen to rush her to All Children's Hospital. I said, "I will meet you there." An hour later, when Kristen carried her in, I knew it was Stevens-Johnson syndrome. I had presented this subject at an international conference 9 years prior. At that time, if you had SJS, you just died. There was no treatment. SJS is an autoimmune allergic reaction to any drug. It can strike with no warning. Riley had broken her clavicle 10 days prior and had been put on children's Advil for the pain. This is what triggered this horrible syndrome, which had her as close to death as you could be. Riley spent 30 days in the intensive care unit. Among the long list of damages, Stevens-Johnson syndrome had destroyed her left cornea with third-degree burns of the inside of both eyelids. When Riley eventually came home, she was blind in the left eye and so light-sensitive in her right eye, she literally had to spend the next year of her life in total darkness. 2 years later, the doctors had calmed Riley's left eye enough to have the leading SJS corneal surface doctor in the world perform a corneal transplant. We were as thrilled as you can be. When the Lions Eye Institute donated the corneal tissue to our precious little girl, we could not have been more appreciative. The sad part is that some SJS patients reject up to 6 corneal transplants before one may work. About 2 weeks out after surgery, Riley began to reject the transplant. She almost lost her eye completely. Fortunately, her optic nerve remains intact and can utilize her 3 years of memory of sight to see again. So we may have about 7 to 10 more years to succeed. Riley is still light sensitive, but it's not as horrific as it was in the beginning of this ordeal. The hope now is, the longer we wait, the better her eye and internal eyelid will be healed. We are hoping for a second corneal transplant in about 3 years. Riley is a beautiful old soul with the bravest and kindest heart. She never asked, "Why me? Why do I have pain in my eyes every day of my life?" If you were to pray for our precious little girl, pray that her next corneal transplant works. And please make plans now to donate your corneal tissue when you no longer need it. You can save another from blindness. Be compassionate. Be generous. Be the hero in someone's eyes.